Hey, I'm at the age where I say stuff like, "I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for 30 years." So I say to my wife, who's we got together when we were teenagers. So I say to her, "Babe, I've been doing this for 30 years," and she'll say, "You did it once 30 years ago, or you've been doing it the whole time since then?" Because of course it's usually the first one, right? Um, well, my name is Dr. Asitar Bear. I'm a professor of economics and teacher of meditation, and I teach this live stream class every week at this time. It's an introduction to Heart Rhythm Meditation. Heart Rhythm Meditation is a method of meditation that comes out of Sufism. Sufi tradition is the often called the esoteric side of Islam. My lineage of Sufism is Indian Sufism, comes from Hazrat Inayat Khan. I studied with his son, Pir Vilayat Inayat Khan, and then with my father and my stepmother, and I have a complicated family full of spiritual teachers. So it's a little bit about my background. Now, for this class, I want to continue on with the theme that we started last week, which was the seven chakras and how energy moves through the body, accumulates in these different centers, and how that affects us, how we can cause change in ourselves, how we can develop ourselves by focusing on these centers, what qualities and attributes are associated with them, what kind of problems and issues are associated with them as well. Um, and I also want to talk about the topic of burnout and how to use meditation for that. So, with the chakras, we've been doing sound practices. So these are repetitive. There's like mantras, right? Um, Sufism has its own version of that, which is called wazifa, or wazaif is the plural. And these are uh, sacred um, concepts. They are associated with the 99 names of God in the Islamic tradition, and they're given a certain interpretation by Sufis, which is to that God is the ultimate of all qualities, but God has specific qualities as well, right? And we can invoke these with these practices, and it works well when we make a sound, use an intention where we draw out the sound of this practice, because the sound adds to the meaning, and it has a certain effect vibrationally on our bodies, on us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the whole thing, right? So, if you were with me last week, you might have noticed I focus less on the mechanics of the breathing process. I usually talk about that a great deal, right? Because that's important, right? Um, and with sound practices, we're doing something different, right? We're making the sound, and then we're sitting with it quietly and doing our breathing and taking in the energy of that particular practice. Um, so in Sufi terms, this is called zikr. Zikr means it's the Indian version of it. The another pronunciation would be dhikr. So that means recitation or spoken prayer, spoken recitation. Uh, and then doing it silently, doing the practice silently is called fikr, doing it on the breath, silent prayer. Um, so we went through and talked about these different chakras, and I spent a lot of time on the first four, or what are sometimes called the lower chakras. Okay, so that is the root chakra. Okay, the root chakra is like right at the tip of the tailbone. It is the taint, this spot between the anus and the genitals. Um, so very specific spot. This represents, I mean, like, if you're seated right now, I am, right, the seat of your being, right? What is it? What does it represent? What does it mean? It is the space that you occupy in the world, right? It is the feeling of safety, of stability, of home, right? So Now, that's a very deep and important quality to have, right? The quality of just being at home in the world, right? Um, it is often related to, what gives us stability in, modern capitalism, right? Is having an income, right? Having that kind of financial stability. I mean, our world unfortunately is structured in a rather brutal way, so that if you don't have that, then you're not going to really be able to have a decent life, right? I mean, you're going to be very, very challenged without an income, right? So, um, it's sad, right? We have the ability, we should be simply just taking care of everyone, right? Regardless of what they do. We should never allow a person to starve. But that's the opposite of what we do, right? About 9 million people starve to death each year. Really a horrible thing, despite a global food surplus. Uh, so anyway, that's our that's the structure of our world. It connects to our first chakra because all of us are at least somewhat threatened by it, right? I mean, unless you're like very, very rich, right? I personally am not. So unless you're very, very rich, you deal with, there is a possibility that I could be without income and that my life would become very, very challenging, right? As a result of that. Um, that could happen to any of us, right? Most of us rely on employment for our income. So, and of course, you can lose your job for any reason, right? So, first chakra deals with this feeling of having a place in the world. Very, very important. Now, I don't want to make it sound like it's all external factors, right? So, you could be independently wealthy and still not feel like you're at home in the world, right? That's totally a possibility. So, what we're dealing with, meditation, spiritual practice, is doing the best we can with the external circumstances that we have, right? Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't change our external circumstances. We should, right? Um, Meditation can help with that too. It can help you accomplish things. Uh, but in the moment that we're doing it, we're doing that, right? We're doing a practice. We're not out there trying to change the world. We're trying to change ourselves, right? Okay. So first chakra, second chakra, the sexual chakra, the center of proliferation, of expression, of creativity, of sensuality, of pleasure, right? So the the first chakra is being at home in the world. The second chakra is saying yes to life, right? And the pleasure that comes with that, right? Many of us go through life and are wounded in one or more of these areas, right? So we have some kind of dysfunctional family. We have a separation or divorce of our parents. If there's abuse of some kind, right, it's very often marks us. We carry that in one of these two centers, right? So I talked about practices which work on this. And I'm going to go through these again this time in case you missed that. Okay. Third chakra is your solar plexus. Okay. So at the base of your rib cage, right? Solar plexus, that chakra is center of the will. So very, very important, right? So second chakra, sexual chakra is about saying yes to life, right? Yes, the third chakra is about saying no. Um, and that's incredibly important, right? Because, we need boundaries to thrive, right? Um, we cannot allow just anyone to do anything to us, right? Or we cannot allow ourselves to, you know, I don't know, by not saying no, we threaten ourselves, right? I mean, that's the issue. So if that center is not developed, you often find this, right? Poor boundaries, um, not protecting yourself, even when it could be very simple, right? I mean, when I say boundaries, I'm not talking about setting up an electric fence and having guard towers like that, right? No, I'm just talking about saying no when it's a no, right? Um, do you have to be like no? No, you do not, right? You don't. You can be very kind about it, right? Um, My stepfather had a nice example of this. I was thinking about this recently. Um, he was with somebody who is very much an interrupter and a talker over and whatever. And he went through several interruptions and he sort of put up with it. And then he was saying something and he got interrupted, and he just said, "I'm talking now." It wasn't mean about it. No, it was very kind about it, but it set the boundary, right? Like that, thing to look for, right? Um, in life. Okay, so third chakra, very, very important, right? The ability to say no, to exercise the will, right? To associate with accomplishing things, accomplishing goals, um, and that's very important. Okay, um, so again, that can be weak, that can be wounded. Oftentimes, what makes that weak is seeing somebody who has that, but they're abusive. I mean, that's the distortion here, right? Is that willpower is a very fundamental power that human beings have, right? Um, but you could use that to have power over others, to abuse others, right? And that could make you be like, I don't want that, I don't want to be that way. I don't want to. If that's what power is, I don't want it, right? Um, I had a bit of a reaction like this myself as a kid. So, very, very common to carry a wound in one of these that it manifests in one of these energetic centers. Okay. And the purpose of doing spiritual practice is that, you can move these issues very quickly, right? Um, by working on them directly. So you might find it hard to believe, right? A lot of this stuff is hard to believe when it's being talked about. All right. Um, and that's why you have to experience it, right? Okay, so and then the fourth center is the heart chakra, right? Heart rhythm meditation. Working with this center all the time, right? This is the center of emotion, of sympathy, of empathy, the ability to put yourself in another's place, to feel without putting it into structures or language or any of that, right? Just to be in that pure emotion, right? So, very, very important. We think of this as the Master Chakra, the one that holds all the other energies within it. Okay, so a very big, enveloping, and it is the center of the energetic system, right? We have seven. So the one in the middle, right? There's three above that, three below that, right? Um, okay, so uh, tonight I want to focus more, since I focused a lot on these four last time. I want to focus more on these upper chakras. All right. So that is the throat chakra. Okay. The throat chakra is above that. It's centered, on the throat. I know you can't see my throat because I got this beard, but it's centered on the throat. And this is a subtle chakra. As we move up the spectrum, the colors become cooler. Okay, so the root chakra has this deep red color, right? The sexual chakra has a kind of pink salmon color, right? The solar plexus has like a gold yellow, yellowish red kind of color, right? The heart has a gold color. So these are the colors of the chakra. As we move up, then we get into the cooler colors, all warm colors, right? We get into these cooler colors. Okay, so the throat chakra, green. All right, very interesting, because think about the color green and think about just how much of the earth is green, right? Because of plant life, right? Um, an amazing thing, right? And that there's some connection with all of that life, right? That is the vibe that we're looking for with the throat chakra, right? That is the connection on a subtle level with all of life. Okay. So we have a very particular sound for this one. The wazifa is Ya Kadus, and Kadus is a word, a very beautiful word. It's in other languages as well. There's similar kadosh is in Hebrew. So there's similar words to it. It means divine spirit. So that when we say this, we are invoking a name of God, right? In the Islamic tradition, what we think of it as an attribute, right? This an attribute of God, which is spirit, right? That which is in everything, but it is subtle, right? It is not necessarily the thing that presents, it's what is underneath the surface, all right? So, in order to try to get at that, we want to make this very particular sound. We're not going to say the word like it sounds as a word, caduce, like that. We're going to say it like um, bringing together a bunch of sounds together, okay? So the sounds, the first sound we're going to do is making a restriction in the throat. Okay. So as air passes through, it passes through this restriction, and it makes this sound like this. I hope I hope my mic's picking that up, right? This is meant to be an oceanic sound, right? So very simple to make just on its own, right? All you're doing is restricting the throat and just blowing through that restriction, right? Okay, that's one component. All right. So next component we're going to do is a buzzing sound with the lips. Okay, so one part of it is made with the throat, like that, right? One part of it is made with the lips. All right, so the lip part, so like this. Okay, so another restriction, right? This time in the lips. So we got two, right? We got one in the throat, one in the lips. These restrictions, as the air passes through them, you're not restricting it so much, right? You're just keeping some tension in the throat. The air is going to pass through that anyway, right? And it's going to cause a vibration. So now this is a metaphor because spirit finds a way to break through, right? It always does. It's amazing, right? Breaks through, it enlivens. That's the feeling we want. So we're producing a physical effect, right, by making this sound. So two sounds combined now, right? The and the right. So make them together. It's like all right. Try that out. So you're again pushing through a restriction in your throat. You have to keep some tension there, and then another one in the lips. Okay. The bass sound that we're making that holds this together is caduce, has this oo sound in it, right? Oo, like that. So the oo sound is going to be the bass sound that we're making through the restriction. Okay. And then the final thing we're going to add, there's more, one more thing. The final thing we're going to add is a kind of blowing noise, right? So air is passing through all these restrictions and buzzing and also blowing, right? So it's the sound of the wind whistling through the trees, right? I did a little whistle by mistake. Right? Just like that. So these sounds are easy to make on their own, right? Anybody can make these sound, right? Easy to make on their own. We just combining them together with the U sound, all right? And we're going to start off with saying ya could do, and then go into the prolonged, so ya caduce, and then we're going to draw out that second syllable, all right? So try this with me. Try making this collection of sounds. I hope you can follow it and make this collection of sounds. And as you're doing it, sit up straight and just try to notice what's happening as you do this. All right, we'll do this for a minute or two. Yakadu. Yakadu. Yogdu. 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 Okay, so now we'll sit with this silently for a moment. Breathe into the experience. Make your breath deep in your belly, slow, rhythmic, heart centered, and full. Feel that it's your heart that is breathing, even while you're focusing on the energy that is concentrated in your throat chakra. The heart center holds all the other chakras. Hmm. What a powerful sound that is. Hmm. So, a lot of these are, this is one of these things I have legitimately been doing for 30 years, right? Like, right? Um, uh, a lot of these practices, it's like anything else, right? Any skill, you see more in it, you develop it more and more the more you practice it, right? So I hope you're getting something from it by, if it's your first time doing this. I hope you get something from it, right? You might get a taste of what this has to offer. Uh, Now, one of the sensations that you might get physically, you might feel a buzzing on the face, right? You might feel itchy, you might feel the nose might feel itchy, right? All of this is because of that vibration, that stimulation that's happening when we do that. So we restrict the lips, the throat, etc. All of this causes a vibration as the air passes through. And that's part of the sensation that we're working on, right? We want to focus that vibration in the throat chakra as a way of stimulating it, opening it, and allowing us to then experience, right? What is this pure spirit? It's in everything, right? When we tap into that, we get that connection because spirit is spirit, right? It might manifest in different ways in different beings, right? So, I might have a different spirit than you do, right? Because I have different qualities, right? Different qualities in my spirit. But on some level, spirit is spirit, right? So that connection to all subtle energy, right? To vibration, okay? Why is that associated with the throat chakra, Rob? Well, when we speak, right? We speak, we are communicating through the vibration that we're making with our vocal cords, right? The our abdominal muscles expel by contracting, right? Expel the air, and then our vocal cords vibrate it, right? So just our normal act of communication, right? Is we are what are we doing? We're sending out vibrations from here, right? So that's there's always a connection, okay? So spiritual, physical, etc., right? Everything is connected. All right. So the next chakra we're going to work on is the third eye. Um, Now, the third eye is associated with this kind of storied gland in the brain. It is called the pineal gland. Called that because it is kind of resembles a pine cone. So pineal, um, and this is remarkable because it's like it's right in the center. It's like between this point, right? Here's the right. And if we went a point that's in the center of the head this way, right? So it's like you think of these two lines intersecting, is right in the middle of the skull, right? Um, and this is an amazing thing. The pineal gland actually has these tiny crystals in it, which are sensitive to light. Now, you either think that is the darkest place that you can inside your skull, right? I mean, how is light getting in there, right? Um, so, I mean, well, a bit of a mystery there, right? It has crystals which are sensitive to light, and this is like these are the word they use is a piezo, which I guess means small. I don't know, microcrystal. Um, so, this is, what is the purpose of this organ, right? This is an interesting thing. So, the mystics, well, often said, right, there's always a physical structure that parallels the spiritual center, right? So, I mean, like with the heart, right? You have a physical heart. Um, the physical heart is in the center of your chest, right? The heart chakra is in the center of your chest. We sometimes think of the heart as being on the right side. It isn't on the right side, but the blood comes kind of to a point and then gets reversed, and that happens on the right. So it's more it's easier to sense on the right. If you're like looking for a pulse or a heartbeat, right, you might go to the doctor, right? When they use their stethoscope, they're going to put it on the right side, because when the blood goes through that reversal, that's when it is the loudest on that level, right? Um, but the location of the heart is in the center of the chest, right? I mean, that's the anyway. It's not an anatomy class, but the point is, there's always a physical structure that corresponds, right, um, to the spiritual center. Okay, so the third eye chakra, this is what we're talking about, right? Associated with the pineal gland, um, is again, this is about subtle perception. Okay, so it's often associated with psychic power, with the ability to see things that are occurring at a distance, or to know things that you couldn't possibly know, right? To what is psychic powers, right? It's clairvoyance or clairaudience, or these different names that have been given for this. How can we know things that we haven't personally seen or sensed, right? Um, well, we know because we are all connected, right? We're all connected on a spiritual level. So, what somebody else experiences on some level, I experience too, right? What somebody else sees, I see, right? So, one of the things to keep in mind about the third eye, um, is that sometimes we want to think about it as like, you know like some kind of, I don't know, shooting laser from our forehead or something like that. um, we want to think instead about opening, right? So eyes are something which take in, right? um, So now, whenever you're taking something in, you're also sending. I mean, that's kind of like a basic reality, right? Um, but we want to focus on opening our third eye here, right? Not on forcing it to send, not that, right? But on receiving. It's a receptive kind of faculty, all right? Now, the sound that we're going to use here is important. It's different, a very different sound. This is one we're not going to be making restrictions or whatever. We are going to be aiming for a particular note. This is called an overtone. Okay. And these overtones are produced when the air, is at a certain pitch, and then it produces a secondary sound, not from your vocal cord, but from the movement of the air itself. Um, and it often happens between two different types of sounds, okay, between in the transition from one sound to another. So with this one, this is the practice is Ya Alim. Alim, it refers to divine intelligence. So we can think of that as, perfect, infinite, right, unlimited intelligence of God. So Alim is the sound, right? It is the word. So Ya means we are calling upon that, right? Ya Alim. We are invoking that quality in ourselves, right? Which works because we have all of these qualities within us, right? We are, each one of us is our spirit, right? Is unlimited. So we have all of these qualities within us. We can tap into them, right? That's our divine inheritance, right? That's our true nature. So we want to make this sound, and this is a very clear, very pure, it even uncompromising type of sound. Okay, so we want it to be no restriction, right? No making it a clear tone. Okay, so it's E, right? That's the sound we're going to draw out, E, and then we're going to transition it because it ends in right? So going from E to that is where the overtone can take place. Okay, so really pay attention to going from E, right? And you might like I'll try to produce these overtones. You might hear it. It's a sound that is going to be higher. It's higher than what your vocal cords could actually produce, right? Like so, like my voice isn't particularly high, right? You might hear this ringing of a bell kind of sound, right? Um, there are singers that specialize in this kind of thing, right? Sometimes it's called throat singing. Um, so let's try this out. Okay, so um, let's see if we can do this effect. All right, sounds like this. Yali. Yoli. Yoli. I hope you guys can hear that overtone. I hear it on my end. I don't know if it's coming through what you hear on your end. But that's the very particular frequency stimulates the pineal gland and the third eye. Yoli. 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 All right, so you sit quietly and you take that practice on your breath. Again, making your breath deep and rhythmic and slow and heart centered, full. And it's good to have the attitude toward the third eye that what we receive is a gift. You know, we don't want to demand. We don't want to, like, why can't I see, Why can't I see what's happening on the other side of the world through my psychic power? I want to know. I want that, right? We have to take a different attitude, right? We have to say what we're given to perceive, especially when it comes to subtle perception, to psychic abilities, right? These are real abilities. Um, whatever we receive from that, is appropriate for us, right? Um, Imagine if your psychic abilities were developed to the extent that you could hear everybody's thoughts all the time, right? How noisy that would be. How how difficult life would be, right? It's good that we can't, right? Normally. Um, might be nice to experience that for a moment or whatever, right? To see what's possible. Um, but again, we want to have this attitude. What we get here is a gift. Okay, you get what is right for you. Um, now, so maybe you get some part of that experience. Hopefully, that sound. You could hear the overtone, or right. You can get an effect from somebody else doing it. It's more powerful if you do it, but you can get an effect by just listening to somebody else do it, because that's the power of sound, right? That's the power of vibration. um, these sounds, even if it's through a recording, right? Even if you're watching this later, you're not here with me live, right? You might still pick up that sound and pick up the vibe that goes with it, right? Sound very powerful for producing a vibe, right? I mean, that's why what we love about music, right? um, okay, so the top of the chakra system, the crown chakra, this is this is one that's not as associated with a physical structure, because this one is actually located outside your body. This is right here, right? A crown. Like in an old painting where you see somebody with a halo, right, or with a you know like this, right? Um, that's depicting in paint, right, a spiritual reality. Uh, so um, for this one, we're actually going to use a Hindu mantra. This is not an Islamic one, not a Sufi. I mean, Sufis use practice from all over, right? So it's not. I'm not going to say it's not Sufi, but it's not one of the Islamic wazifa. Um, this one is the sound of Om, and um, a lot of people have done this one because it's quite common in like a yoga class, to begin or maybe end with the sound of Om. So there's three different things going on with Om, right? There's an ah sound. So sometimes it's written like this. It's written like AUM, or sometimes just OM. Spelling doesn't matter, right? But it's an ah sound, and it's an O sound, and then it's a sound. Okay, so we have two different opportunities to try to produce these overtones with the sound of Om, right? One is in the transition between ah and O, all right, and the next is between the O and the right? The O, right? There's something has to change in your mouth, right, in order to do that. So again, pay attention to that moment of transition. Try to just really focus in on that, and also listen, right? Listen, producing that overtone. Okay. Also, um, it's good if you take a big breath when you do this, and you have more time to play with the sound. Okay. Um, So, but the main thing isn't necessarily the overtone, right? The main thing is we want the sound to make a very open kind of vibration, right? We want to feel that vibration throughout our bodies, right? Especially in the center of the chest, okay? But we're focusing it on this, right, most subtle part of the energetic system, the most subtle chakra, right? So that chakra that is the most connected with that transcendent reality, right? That transcendent oneness. that is our being, right? That purity of our being, okay, which connects us to the infinite, right? So the color of the crown chakra is white, right? Like a white light incorporates, right, has within it all of the colors of spectrum, okay? Um, so, right, the the center that is associated with transcendent unity, okay? And the heart center is associated with imminent unity, right? That is with unity that is embodied, which feels feelings, right? Which has a physical body, all this, okay? So there are, see, unity is the nature of life, right? So there's different ways to experience it, or there's different flavors of it, right? It's all unity, but it's sort of like all light is light, right? But if there's different spectrum, then you see, the light appears differently, right? Okay, so let's try this. Let's try this sound out and see if we can get catch that experience. Okay. That's a very powerful one. I often feel like I can barely speak afterwards. Like I would like the silence to just stretch on, and the vibration within, let it continue and echo and become more powerful as it becomes more subtle. Now, one of the other benefits of doing these sounds, especially one that has a drawn out part of it, right, where you're working with the sound or trying to achieve an overtone. Maybe you could hear that, right, happening some of the time. I'm producing the overtone sometimes. It's not throughout, so you hear it kind of pick up and then cut out. Um, but one of the benefits of doing these long sounds is also the breath development, right? So that, because, right, part of the meditation, we're trying to do a particular intervention with the breath. We're trying to make the breath deep, right? So that abdominal region expands and contracts when you breathe. We're trying to make the breath slow so that It's under control, right? It's not happening rapidly, right? It's going has a slower rhythm. We're trying to make it full. We're making the breath bigger, using more of our lung capacity than we use. We're trying to make the breath rhythmic and heart centered. So, this is a lot to ask of ourselves, right? To really develop the breath. And I know that, right? It's a tremendous task to really develop your breath. But the reason I suggest it is because it pays off incredible dividends when you have a powerful breath. Uh, you can get into a meditative state much more quickly, right? Um, Even if you're very upset and and all this, it's an incredible shortcut to change your state very profoundly. Okay, and the same thing with these sound practices, right? They work incredibly quickly. Um, so it's a very good thing to start with, right? Now, usually these practices are given by a teacher, right, who's working with you personally, right, individually, who knows you, who is helping you to customize your spiritual work for the greatest benefit to you at this time, right? We all have different needs. We have different qualities. We have different things that we're working on. Um, Self-development doesn't happen in every single direction at once, thank goodness. Right? It happens in maybe a few at a time, right? So um, typically, like the classical Sufi way is, your teacher suggests these practices for you, right, and then checks in with you. How's it going, right? Um, with the expectation that you're practicing on your own. you know. Um, so this class isn't of that style. This is a new class. This is a new style, right? I'm just broadcasting this. Use it for what you'd like to use it for. Um, Now, if you would like help, of course, contact me. I'm active on Twitter. Send me a message. Um, Drop me a comment on a video. If you have a question or you'd like something you'd like to discuss. Um, I take questions and I have virtual office hours a few times a week. So um, if you want um, that kind of customization, right? That classical style of learning. If not, maybe you're just trying this out, seeing it's for you. Um, I'd encourage you to play with these practices. Okay, they are powerful, but you focus on your heart, right? Your heart. So this is what um, this will prevent you from getting into trouble with these things, right? Um, all right, so this is it. So we focused this class. We talked much more about the upper chakras, right? The throat, the third eye, and the crown chakra. Um, if you're interested in what I had to say about the earlier, check out the last class, right? The lower chakras. I go through practices, different sound practices for the first four chakras. Um, all right, and again, the point of this is there's a connection between each of these centers. All right, so a lot of times we get help by focusing on the chakra that is connected to another one, right? So, example, right? We can if we have a weakness, right, a lack of development in our root chakra, we can often get helped by tuning into the crown chakra, right? Focusing on that. As long as it's connected, right? As long as we don't disassociate, leave our bodies and so forth, right? We don't want to do that. We want to keep the spiritual energy in ourselves. Okay. Um, Now, since I've talked about the chakra system, I want to talk about the directions that energies flow within this system. Um, this is often taught in the yoga tradition. So this style of meditation, which focuses on The chakras is often called Kundalini yoga, and it's called that because it's focused on a particular energetic flow. Okay, and that energetic flow is called Kundalini. It is the rising of spiritual energy through the chakras. All right. And so it's rising in a couple of senses, right? One sense is it's rising, because the chakra system is like this, right? It's in a line. So rising spatially, right, as a direction. But there's another sense of rising, which is moving from the that which is imminent to that which is transcendent, right? So moving from, manifestation to, the world of spirit, right? Going from that's also a rising, So as we go from matter to thought, let's say, right? Um, we're becoming more abstract, right? Like you can think of an idea, oh, I want to build this or whatever, right? But those things are different, right? And a lot of times, whatever we build starts with a plan, right? It starts with that, right? So the more from the manifest to the abstract to the what comes before there's even a plan, before there's even a thought. You see what I'm getting at, right? We're moving from the more concrete to the more subtle, right? The more unmanifest. Um, okay, so that is what Kundalini. That's what that flow of energy is all about. Okay, and so it's kind of watch where it is, rise above, right? That's can be very powerful. Um, uh, and Sufism tends to focus on, I mean, this is a fundamental kind of energy. And so lots and lots of spiritual traditions, it's not just the yoga tradition, but lots of spiritual traditions, they have different names for it and whatever, right? Um, but they are aware that there's this rising energy. Okay. So very, very common experience in meditation is to feel a sense of rising. Okay. You might experience it as a physical sensation. It might be more of a feeling of expansiveness or a feeling of being up high, of seeing things from much higher than you're used to. Right? Okay, all of that's signs of what they call Kundalini awakening or Kundalini rising. Now, Sufism focuses on uh, the downward flow of energy. Okay, so this is the opposite. Um, and in Sufi terms, you'd call this ishq. Ishq is a beautiful kind of concept from Sufism. It means divine love. Um, and it means it in a particular way, right? It's like this cosmic kind of love, the love of, the that keeps the subatomic particles together within the atom, that kind of that kind of level of of love, right? Like a love that is so vast, so universal, so cosmic, that it is not connected to any particular object, right? But is in all objects, right? In everything that exists and does not exist, right? That's ishq, okay? So with Sufis interpret this as being like this is a downward flow of energy, okay? Downward in several senses, right? So downward through the chakras, like I mentioned, okay? But also from the abstract, right? From the uncreated world of spirit, right? That which we cannot sense directly, right? Because it has no form, it has no, smell, it has no, you can't touch it, right? All this stuff, right? Um, so, from the subtle, intangible, all this, right? To the fully manifest, okay? And that mirrors the process that we went through as human beings, right? We went from the world of pure spirit to the world of matter that we're in right now, right? Uh, and we still have that part of ourselves, right? Our inner nature that is spirit, right? But we're in this flow as human beings, right? When we're alive on this earth, right? We are in that downward flow, okay? So however, the meditation focuses a lot more on the downward flow than it does the upward flow, right? That is taking the entirety of this this spiritual sense of the unlimited and bringing it into the heart. All right. Feeling that in your heart. So it's the feeling of I am all, right? I am all that there is. That is the feeling. And we want that to, we feel it in the heart, right? So part of the point of learning the chakra systems is just to become more familiar with how does energy flow, through your body and through your spirit, right? Like, all these things are connected. Um, all right, it looks like I wanted to address the theme of burnout and what is that, and how might we work with that in meditation. But it looks like I'm going to have to do that on the next time. So I'll just give a little brief introduction to what I want to say about that. You know, something that I think a lot of people deal with, especially now. We had the stresses of the quarantine. And at least in the United States. In other countries, I can't speak to that experience so well, but right, I live in Southern California, and we've had like this year of quarantine, of being at home, right? Um, and so I think that that's caused a lot of us to struggle with a certain kind of feeling of burnout, right? A feeling of not wanting to do even the things that one enjoys. Uh, so next week, I want to talk about that and present some ideas about how to work with that with meditation. I try to keep these classes to an hour. I don't want it to go too far over that. Um, so please come back if you're interested in that topic. Please come back. Always good to be here live. You catch the vibe and all that, and I do appreciate those who support this class. If you're interested in supporting it, you can visit my Patreon page. I put a link in the description. Um, so I'm here every week, again, 7 o'clock Pacific. So thanks so much for joining me this evening. And please, if you have a question, get in touch with me. I'd love to talk to you. All right. Namaste. Take care.